Exiled to the frozen wastes for a cursed bloodline, 3 years later, I ruled a throne built from every talent I secretly devoured. In the Ardenveil Empire, your entire future is decided in a single moment. The Awakening Stone Ceremony. Every citizen touches the monument once, and the stone ignites whatever element lives inside their blood. Fire. Ice. Wind. Earth. The color tells the empire everything, your rank, your worth, your place in the world. The ceremony is public. It has to be. Because the empire doesn't just want to know what you are, it wants everyone else to know too. Roan Asv is 17 years old when he steps forward. His family sits in the front row. House Asv, minor nobility, but proud. His older brother Davin had ignited gold flame at his ceremony 2 years ago. Tier 3. The family celebrated for a week. His father hadn't stopped talking about it since. Now it's Roan's turn. He presses his palm flat against the stone. The hall fills with silence. Not the anticipatory silence before a reveal, the wrong kind of silence. The kind that follows something broken. No flame. No light. No color. Nothing. The stone sits cold under his hand, exactly as gray and dead as it was before he touched it. Someone in the crowd laughs first. Then another. Then the whole hall. The examiner steps forward, voice flat and official. Null result. Hollow rank. House Asv, record it. His father doesn't move. His brother looks away. Roan pulls his hand back from the stone. And then, just before he steps away, he feels it. Something the crowd cannot see. A faint pull inside the stone, like a breath being drawn inward. Not outward. Not a flame or a light. Something being taken. He doesn't understand it yet. But he doesn't forget it either. Hollow rank doesn't just mean you failed the ceremony. In the Ardenveil Empire, hollow rank means border conscription. You are sent to the edges of the empire. To the places where the empire's law stops and the monsters begin. They call it service. Everyone knows what it actually is. Of the 3 hollow children in House Asv's recorded history, none returned. The exile document arrives 3 days after the ceremony. 1 page. Official seal. Roan's name at the top. His cousin Varric is waiting in the study when Roan comes to read it. Varric is everything Roan was supposed to be. Tier 2 Awakening, clean lineage record, already being positioned to inherit the Asv estate. He sets a second document on the desk beside the exile order. A title transfer deed. House Asv's assets, formally transferred to the next eligible heir. It just needs your signature, Varric says. His voice is careful. Neutral. The kind of neutral that took practice. Since you're being reassigned, it simplifies things for the family. Roan reads the deed once. He picks up the pen. He signs. Varric exhales, barely, and reaches for the document. Roan holds it a moment longer before releasing it. Simplified, Roan says. Right. He means something else. Varric hears it. Neither of them says anything more. That night, his father visits his room exactly once. He stands in the doorway for 11 seconds, Roan counts, and then leaves without speaking. His brother doesn't come at all. Roan packs what he's allowed, a travel coat, 1 change of clothes, a small knife. He packs slowly, deliberately, the way you pack when you're deciding something. When dawn comes, the Empire's escort is already at the gate. Roan walks out without looking back. Not because he doesn't feel it. Because he's already decided that whatever he becomes from here, it won't be built on this house. It won't carry their name. It won't ask for their approval. It will be built in the cold, from nothing, by his own hands. Or he'll die out there like the 3 before him. Either way, he's done being what they decided he was. The Frostfall Wastes. The Empire's maps mark it as a frontier territory. That's the polite version. The real version, a frozen killing ground 40 miles wide, permanently locked in winter, overrun by monsters that have been breeding undisturbed for 2 generations. The Empire sends hollow ranks there because the monsters will finish the job cleanly. No bodies to explain. No graves to maintain. Roan arrives with 12 others. He doesn't know their names yet, he learns them in the order they speak. Mira, who was a failed Earth mage, speaks first because she's angry, not afraid. Fun, a 17-year-old with a cracked wind awakening too weak to register at full rank, speaks second because he's trying not to cry. The rest comes slowly. A former carpenter. A farmhand who could barely summon a flame. An old healer whose body reinforcement ability had degraded with age. A girl no older than 15 who refuses to give her name at all and sits as far from the group as the camp boundary allows. 13 people total. 12 of them hollow or near hollow. One who showed nothing at all. The Empire drops them with a week's rations, a tent bundle, and a map that ends at the border. The escort turns around without a word. The cold hits immediately, not cold the way Ardenveil city winters are cold, but a specific, aggressive cold, the kind that finds every gap in clothing and gets in. They spend the first hours building the camp. No one takes charge. 3 people try to raise the main tent pole at the same time and argue about it for 20 minutes. Roan doesn't argue. He picks up the post, positions it correctly, and waits. 4 people drift over to help without being asked. That's how it starts. The first monsters come before the sun fully sets. Not a scouting pack, a real attack. 6 goblins, 2 frost wolves, and behind them, moving slower and larger through the tree line, the outline of something bigger. The goblins are fast. The wolves hit like ice. People scatter. Someone screams. The old healer goes down immediately, not from injury, from panic. Mira drives her foot into the earth and manages a cracked stone wall that buys them 30 seconds. Fun throws a burst of wind that staggers 2 wolves. Small powers, barely functional, but used. Roan stays in the center. Not because he's brave. Because he's watching. He's thinking about what he felt at the awakening stone. The pull inward. He's thinking about it very carefully while people are fighting around him, and something in him, something he does not yet have a name for, is paying attention. The fight is ugly and chaotic and they barely survive it. But they survive it. After, sitting around the fire, shaking, bandaging cuts, someone says, "We need a plan." Everyone looks at Roan. He doesn't know why. He hasn't said much. He hasn't done much, not in the fight, not in the camp building. But he'd stayed calm. And in a place like this, calm is visible. "Tomorrow morning," he says. "Tonight, we rest. Everyone needs to be able to function tomorrow. Sleep in shifts. I'll take first watch." It's not a speech. It's just the next thing. But people lie down. And that's enough, for tonight. It happens on the 3rd day. Another attack, smaller this time, 3 frost wolves testing the camp perimeter. The group fights back with more coordination now. Mira holds the wall. Fun drives them back with wind. The carpenter, whose name is Borel, Roan has learned, has started using his stone-shaping ability to set trip lines in the snow the night before. It works. 2 wolves hit the lines. Roan fights with the knife. He's not trained, but he's quick, and he stays close to Fun and Mira because he's started to notice something. When they use their abilities, when the power activates, when it's actually moving through them and outward, he feels it. A pull. Behind his sternum. Gentle, automatic, like breathing. And then the system appears. He's never had a status window before. Hollow ranks don't get them. But 3 days into the Frostfall Wastes, with frost wolves bleeding in the snow around him and Finn's wind still dissipating in the air, a panel unfolds at the edge of his vision. Vessel trait, active. Fragment absorbed, wind element, minor. Fragment absorbed, earth element, minor. Carrier capacity, 2 of unlimited. Note, absorption requires active skill use within proximity. Passive presence does not trigger. Roan stands very still. The wolves are dealt with. The others are catching their breath and checking injuries. No one is looking at him. He reads the window 4 more times. He thinks about the ceremony. The stone that didn't light up, because it wasn't pushing power out. It was pulling power in. He thinks about the hollow ranking, the exile, the title deed his cousin now holds, every conclusion the Empire drew from a test that was measuring the wrong direction. He thinks about 3 prior hollow children from House Asp who were sent here and never came back. He wonders if any of them had this. If they just never figured it out in time. He closes the status window. He looks at the people around him, at Mira resetting the stone wall, at Finn catching his breath, at Borel already checking the trip lines for the next setup. 13 people, all using their abilities every day just to survive. His power grows every time they do. He thinks about this carefully. He thinks about what it means, and what it could mean, and the difference between someone who uses this only for themselves and someone who uses it to make sure all 13 of them walk out of the Frostfall Wastes in 3 years. He makes a decision. He's going to tell them. Not yet, not until he understands it better. But he's not going to hide it like a weapon. He's going to use it like a foundation. Fun, he says. That wind burst. What does it feel like when you hold it back versus when you release it? Show me slowly. I want to understand the mechanics. Fun blinks. No one has ever asked him to explain his ability before. At home, it was just, not enough. Too weak. Not worth analyzing. I mean, okay, Fun says, uncertain. And starts showing him. Roan watches. And learns. And underneath it all, the vessel pulls one more fragment from the air. 1 week in. Still alive. Barely, but alive counts. Roan calls the group together on the morning of the 8th day. Not for a speech, for a question. I want to know what you can actually do, he says. Not your rank. Not what the stone said. What you personally know how to do, work you've done, skills you've practiced, things you're good at that have nothing to do with your ability. Nobody answers immediately. They're not used to being asked. So he goes first. I know crop theory. Soil rotation, planting cycles, water management. I read about it because the Asp estate had farming land and no one else bothered. He says it plainly, without embarrassment. That's what I have. What do you have? It takes time. But they start talking. Mira, the failed Earth Mage, had spent 4 years as an apprentice architect before her hollow ranking ended her career track. She knows load-bearing structures, drainage systems, how to read a slope for water flow. Borel, the carpenter, knows woodwork but also knows stone. Not through his ability, but through 15 years of trade work. He can look at a rock face and tell you where it'll split. The 15-year-old who still won't give her name, Roan learns she grew up on a fishing settlement. She knows tides, weather reading, how to preserve food in cold environments. In the Frostfall Wastes, that last skill alone is invaluable. The old healer, Elder Cass, had studied body reinforcement medicine for 30 years. His ability had faded, but his knowledge hadn't. One by one, the picture changes. These aren't failures. These are 13 people who have been measured by one metric, elemental rank, and dismissed, when every single one of them had actual knowledge, actual skill, actual capability that the Empire had never bothered to record. Roan starts assigning roles that afternoon. Not based on rank. Based on what they'd just told him. Mira leads construction. Borel reports to her. The girl, he calls her Sable, which she doesn't correct, handles food preservation and weather observation. Elder Cass takes medical authority and no one argues with that. Fun looks at him when his assignment comes. And me? Scouts, Roan says. Wind sense. You can feel movement through the air before anyone else can see it. That makes you our early warning system. Fun stares at him. My ability is good enough to feel a wolf pack moving through trees 50 meters out, Roan says. I watched you do it yesterday. You just didn't know that's what you were doing. Fun is quiet for a moment. Okay, he says. That afternoon, for the first time since arriving in the Frostfall Wastes, the group moves like they have a purpose. Mira surveys the terrain for a permanent campsite. Borel takes inventory of available materials. Sable maps where the food sources are least contaminated by monster territory. They're not afraid today. Not because the danger is gone, the danger is exactly the same. But they've stopped waiting to die and started deciding to build. Month 2. Mira finds the site, a natural rock shelf on the western edge of their territory, sheltered on two sides from the wind, elevated enough to spot monster movement from a distance, with a frozen stream nearby that runs unfrozen 6 feet below the ice. Accessible, with the right tools. They spend 3 weeks building. Real walls, not tents. Stone and timber, Myra's architectural knowledge applied to what Borel can actually execute. It's slow. Every day has at least one monster skirmish. But the walls go up. Meanwhile, Roan introduces water filtration. He shows Sable the system, rocks layered by size, charcoal layer from burnt wood, settlement time. It's nothing magical. It's basic knowledge. Learned from books in a noble library because he had nothing better to do on rainy afternoons. Sable watches him build the first filter and then rebuilds it herself from memory. Where did you learn this? She asks. Books, he says. She thinks about this. The Empire has books like that. The Empire has those books in libraries that holoranks aren't allowed to access, Roan says. Not bitterly. Just factually. Sable looks at the water filter she just built. Useful, she says. It's the most she's said to him in 2 months. Crop rotation comes next. Roan marks out growing plots in what little soil isn't frozen at the surface. Nothing grows yet, but come spring, they'll be ready. Then the system upgrade happens. He's been absorbing fragments every day, small ones, from every fight, from every time someone uses their ability nearby. His capacity has grown. And as it grows, he begins to understand something the system hadn't explained at first: he can return fragments. Not the full absorbed amount. But portions of it, pushed back outward, targeted. Amplification. If he concentrates during Myra's earth work, she goes twice as deep with half the effort. If he's close to Fun during scouting, Fun's wind sense extends further than it ever has. He doesn't announce this. He tests it quietly, watching the results. After a week of testing, he calls a group meeting and explains everything. The vessel trait. The absorption. The amplification. He tells them he's been doing it. He tells them what it does. He tells them he should have said something sooner. The group is quiet. Mira speaks first. So you've been getting stronger off us, yes, Roan says. No defense. No explanation offered. Another silence. And you've been making us stronger too, Borel says slowly. The building last week, I felt something different. That was you. Yes. Borel nods once. So you're not keeping it? No, Roan says. That was never what I wanted it for. The silence after that is different. Not tense. Something settling. Fun says, okay. Can you do it on purpose? Like, on purpose, aimed at whoever needs it? Yes, Roan says. That's what I wanted to talk to you about. And they start planning. Month 4. The attacks have been getting organized. Not random predator behavior, something is directing the monsters. Fun reports it first, movement patterns that repeat, coming from the same direction, pausing at the same distance before engaging. Like something is scouting them. Roan takes it seriously. He spends 2 weeks preparing. He runs the group through combat drills. Not training them to be soldiers, training them to hold a defensive line. Positioning. Rotation. When to hold and when to fall back to the walls. He uses Elder Cass's medical knowledge to assign field triage positions so that if someone goes down, help reaches them in under 60 seconds. He names them, that week, the Frost Knights. It's not an official title. It's not a rank from the Empire. It's a name that belongs to them and no one else. The siege comes at dawn. Coordinated. 43 monsters. Goblins on the flanks, moving fast. Frost wolves driving through the center. Behind them, 3 glacial bears, each the size of a small building, pushing forward in a line that would have been a wall through any camp that hadn't built real walls. But they have real walls. Mira holds the earth beneath the eastern approach. Cracked and uneven, the wolves lose their footing. Borel and 2 others hold the gate. Fun's wind sense calls every shift and turn in the monster movement, his voice steady over the chaos, 3 wolves breaking left, Borel, left. Roan moves through the middle of it. He has absorbed enough now. He's not fighting with a small knife anymore. Wind from Fun, earth weight from Mira, the stone-hardening Borel had never known his ability could do until Roan showed him. Roan pulls all of it simultaneously, combines it, pushes back. The glacial bears stop. One turns around. It takes 4 hours. By the end, the settlement is intact. The walls hold. The gate holds. And Borel is dead. He'd gone back for Sable when she'd been cut off from the gate. He'd gotten her back. And then he hadn't made it back himself. They find him at the base of the eastern wall. He'd been doing what he always did, holding something up. That night, Roan sits alone for the first time in 4 months. He thinks about Borel's name on the Empire's exile record. Hollow rank. Insufficient talent. Frontier conscription. Dismissed in 4 words. He thinks about everything Borel built. Everything that is still standing because Borel built it. They bury Borel inside the settlement walls. Because he belongs here. He built here. This is his. Month 6. The emotion analysis activates without warning. Roan is sitting with Elder Cass during a routine medical check when the system opens a new window. Bloodline function unlocked, resonance reading. Reading emotional state of nearby individuals. Range, 5 meters. Elder Cass, fatigue, high. Pain, moderate, left knee. Underlying state, resolved. No crisis indicators. Note, reading does not permit modification. Observation only. Roan looks at Elder Cass. Cass doesn't notice the system window. He's writing in his notes. Resolved. Not happy. Not content. Resolved. The specific emotional state of someone who has made peace with something they cannot change. Elder Cass, who is 63 years old and has been in the Frostfall wastes for 6 months, who has not complained once and will not complain once, is resolved. Roan understands, suddenly, why that word is different from okay. He starts testing the range carefully over the following week. He reads the group not to control them, he is very clear with himself about this. But to catch what people don't say. Fun reads as anxious, elevated, almost constantly, but under it, capable, building. The anxiety isn't debilitating. It's functional. He's using it. Sable reads as guarded, high, every time someone stands too close. But when she's working, mapping, calculating, building the food preservation system, she reads as focused, deep. The kind of focus that's actually rest. One of the newer exiles. A man named Drev, who arrived in their third month with a second wave of holoranks sent to die, reads as loyalty, unstable. Not disloyal. Unstable. Someone whose trust has been broken so many times it doesn't sit right in his chest anymore. He wants to give it but doesn't know how. Roan starts doing small things. He assigns Drev to be Sable's partner on mapping runs. Two people who have reasons not to trust. Working together, their guards matching, until slowly both of them start reading a little less tense that he doesn't announce what he's doing. He doesn't need credit for it. One evening, Fun sits beside him and says, out of nowhere, you know what the difference is between you and the Empire? Roan waits. The Empire looked at all of us and saw what we couldn't do, Fun says. You look at us and you want to know what we can. Roan is quiet for a moment. The Bloodline helps, he says. The Bloodline didn't care about us, Fun says. You did. The Bloodline just gave you better eyes. Roan thinks about this for a long time after Fun goes to sleep. Better eyes. Not a weapon. Not a theft. An understanding. His ancestor built something into the Bloodline that was meant to do this. To read people clearly, to pull from their strength without taking it from them, to build something that couldn't exist if it were only one person's power. The curse was never a curse. It was always this. Year 2. They are 31 people now. More exile waves have come. Roan has met each group at the border, personally, on foot, no weapons visible, and told them what the Frostfall wastes actually are and what they are actually building. Not everyone has stayed. But most have. 31 people means the camp is no longer sustainable as a camp. It needs to be a settlement. And a settlement needs law. Roan calls the first council. 7 people. Elected by the group, not appointed by him. Mira, because she runs construction and everyone listens to her. Elder Cass, for medical and ethical authority. Fun, because the Frost Knights respect him. Sable, because her resource management has kept them fed through 2 brutal winters. Drev, who has become. Slowly, painstakingly, through 18 months of grinding work, the person others go to when they have a problem they don't want to bring to Roan directly. And 2 others, a woman named Hessa who had come in month 8 and turned out to be the most capable teacher they had, and a former Imperial soldier named Tarek who had been exiled for refusing an illegal order. Roan sits at the table. He has 1 vote. They spend 3 days writing the Frostfall Charter. It is not elaborate. It doesn't need to be elaborate, it needs to be clear. 7 articles. The right to shelter. The right to fair labor assignment based on ability and agreement. The right to dispute council decisions. The obligation of defense. The obligation of contribution. The responsibility of leadership to be accountable. The 7th article, Roan writes it himself, and no one changes a word. No one in Frostfall is defined by the rank the Empire assigned them. You are defined by what you build here. That winter is the worst yet. A frost storm that lasts 11 days, temperatures that kill 2 people who'd arrived sick before Elder Cass could stabilize them, but Roan's knowledge holds. The root cellars he'd designed in year 1, deep enough, insulated with the right layering, maintain temperature. The food stores hold. The water filtration system, now expanded to serve 31 people, doesn't freeze because of where Mira set the housing structures to block the worst wind directions. When the storm breaks and everyone is still alive and still fed, Sable walks up to Roan and says, "The books you read in that noble library saved everyone's life this winter." "We saved everyone's life," Roan says. Sable considers this. Both, she says. Spring comes. The settlement has real roads, packed earth between the stone structures. A training ground for the Frost Knights. A medical hall. A school that Hessa runs for the 12 children who have been born or arrived since the exile waves began. One morning, someone carves something into the gate post. Frostfall. Not exile camp. Not frontier territory. Not hollow ranks disposal zone. Frostfall. Roan runs his hand over the carved letters. He doesn't know who did it. It doesn't matter. It happened because everyone felt the same thing at the same time, and someone just said it. That's how places become real. Year 3. Late autumn. The Ardenveil Empire sends scouts. They send them because the monster raids on the eastern frontier have dropped, sharply, inexplicably, over the past 18 months. The territories adjacent to the Frostfall wastes are reporting less pressure. Someone at the Imperial Border Office notices the pattern and files a report. The report travels up. Eventually someone senior enough to care orders a scouting mission. 4 scouts. Experienced. Imperial rank, Tier 2 and above. Given 2 weeks to reach the Frostfall wastes, assess the situation, and report back. Fun detects them 12 hours before they arrive. Roan doesn't prepare anything special. He doesn't build a throne room for them to walk into, doesn't arrange the Frost Knights in formation, doesn't rehearse a speech. He just lets the morning happen. The scouts ride over the last ridge at midday. They stop. Below them, a kingdom. Not a camp. Not a settlement. A real, functioning, self-sustaining kingdom. Walls, watchtowers, fields cleared and ready for winter planting, smoke from multiple hearths, people moving with purpose through organized streets. The gates are open because Frostfall has not needed to fear approaching riders in 6 months. The Frost Knights have cleared the monster population in a 30-mile radius so thoroughly that the surrounding wilderness has become a controlled hunting ground rather than a kill zone. One of the scouts. The senior one, a man named Corvin who has been an imperial assessor for 20 years and has seen a lot of frontier territories, says nothing for almost a full minute. Then, this wasn't supposed to be here. They ride down. Roan meets them at the gate. He looks like what he is, a 20-year-old who has spent 3 years in the most hostile territory in the Empire and survived it. He's lean and precise in his movements and he is wearing nothing that marks him as nobility. He's wearing what everyone in Frostfall wears, practical, layered, built for the cold. Corvin dismounts. He looks at the gate. The walls. The people watching from a distance, not afraid, just watching. Who are you? He asks. Roan Asf, Roan says. I was exiled here 3 years ago. Hollow rank, House Asf, by the standard border conscription process. Corvin is still for a moment. And all of this. Frostfall, Roan says. That's what we call it. All of it was built by people the Empire sent here to die. The assessor looks at the walls. The watchtowers. The gate. The Frost Knights visible at their posts, not a mob of desperate exiles, a real trained force. How many people? He asks. 47, Roan says. 63 if you count the children. Corvin looks at him for a long time. Roan doesn't look away. Inside him, every fragment absorbed over 3 years. Wind and earth and stone and fire and body reinforcement and a dozen minor abilities that shouldn't stack but do, all of them sitting quiet, layered, present. His capacity has long since stopped showing a ceiling in the system display. He stopped tracking it 6 months ago because it stopped mattering as a number. What it built, that matters. What it became, that matters. The Empire measured him and found nothing. He looks at Frostfall and sees what was actually there. The report we filed will need to be revised, Corvin says finally. He sounds like he's choosing his words carefully. Significantly revised. Yes, Roan says. It will. The scouts are given rooms. Frostfall's hospitality is genuine, not political, not performed. Because that's who they are now. Because Roan has never run this place on fear or strategy, only on the principle that people given actual purpose and actual dignity build things that last. That night, the council meets without him. They're deciding how to respond to the Empire officially. What Frostfall wants. What Frostfall will accept. What they are not willing to give. They don't need him in the room. He designed it that way. Roan sits outside. Same place he sat the night of the first attack, alone, watching the dark tree line. Except the tree line is different now. Quieter. Cleared. Safe in a way it was never supposed to be. Fun comes out after an hour and sits beside him. The council's good, Fun says. They've got it. Roan nods. They sit for a while without talking. 3 years ago, Fun says. You took first watch that first night. You'd just been exiled. Your family had just handed away your name. And you said get some rest, I'll take first watch, like it was obvious. Roan remembers. It was obvious, he says. Fun shakes his head, smiling slightly. No. It wasn't. For you it was. Not for everyone. He pauses. That's the difference. Roan looks at Frostfall. At the firelight in the windows, at the gate that stays open not because they're careless but because they're strong enough for it to be safe, at the carved letters on the gate post that someone put there because they felt like they finally belonged to a place. The Empire sent him here to disappear. He built a kingdom instead. Not for revenge. Not to prove something to his father, or his cousin, or the Imperial examiner who wrote null result in neat script and moved on to the next name. For this. For 47 people who were told they were nothing and became something the Empire doesn't have a category for. The stars over the Frostfall wastes are sharp and cold and enormous. Roan sits under them for a long time. Then he goes inside, where it's warm, where the people he built this with are waiting.